Hey everybody, welcome to Surface Level, curious conversations about the Black and queer experience. I'm one of your hosts, Jordan, and today, Damon, Tony, and I are discussing sexual compatibility within gay relationships. Is it a deal breaker for you if someone is strictly into monogamy?
Yes, break it.
If it's a deal breaker for them to be in a more open format,
Yeah.
then it's a deal breaker for me to be in a monogamous.
Do you think it's your responsibility to keep your partner sexually fulfilled?
I feel like it's a shared responsibility.
I don't think that it's fair for me to say, well, because I'm not the one that's able to give it to you or not interested in giving it to you, I prohibit you from doing it.
Yeah.
Why do you think gay men aren't necessarily 100% open about what they like sexually when they're entering into a relationship?
I think that you're in a scenario where you are trying to convince yourself that this sexual universe can exist in a way that works with only these two people. And I think that sometimes to try and get that to work, you like suppress the things that you showed up with. Like, there's only so long you can lie to your damn self.
Right.
Yeah.
Until you find, where's my truth? Is it that big ass dick over there?
This is, sorry, we're not sexually compatible.
That's not very unfortunate.
Raise your hand if you've heard that before.
Those exact words?
I've never heard it expressed verbally like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the hard-hitting news. But like, has it happened where we're not sexually compatible? Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't feel like anybody's ever like, girl,
Yeah.
not you, baby. Like that.
Well, you know, I'm really curious about today's conversation because I can probably count the number of times that I've heard about people ending relationships because maybe they weren't sexually compatible with their partner. Maybe they found out through time and experiences and encounters. And, you know, I'm not really exempt from that either. I've had experiences in relationships where sexual compatibility
I was going to say people
was-
or...
we're going to say people. And so, you know, I think that there's a lot of emphasis in gay relationships, particularly put on like tops, bottoms, verses, and even sides, and what that means for your life and your sex life. But there's a lot to impact. But before we go deeper, let's start on the surface level with a game about sexual compatibility within the dating stage.
Okay.
Okay, so this game is inspired by the game Deal or No Deal.
Oh.
Okay, so I'll present a scenario and you'll let me know if it's a deal breaker for you when you're just starting to date someone. Okay?
Okay.
Is it a deal breaker for you if someone has a 3-month no sex rule?
No. It's not a deal breaker.
Okay.
No.
I don't believe it.
You sound very
I mean, no, but that shit is
unenthusiastic.
stupid.
I know, that's how I feel. I'm just like,
Unenthusiastic.
I would not be, yeah, no.
Very unenthused.
I don't know. We'll circle back to that.
Right.
Maybe we'll ask at the end of the episode. All right. Is it a deal breaker for you if someone says they're a side, which, by the way, is someone who does not find fulfillment in anal penetration?
No.
Is it a deal breaker if someone says that they're a side?
In the dating stage, when you're getting to know them and you're deciding if you want to progress the relationship.
That comes with some contingencies.
Okay.
Because
I don't think this is how deal or no deal works.
that's
Well,
it won't be a deal breaker,
no,
but
but-
I've got to be able to, it's got to be more of an open format. That's all I'm saying.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
It is a deal breaker for me. We love everybody, but you know, I would like a little bit more expansion with my partner in terms of what we do in the bed.
Expand, baby.
Is it a deal breaker for you if someone is strictly into monogamy?
Yes. Break it. No deal.
At this stage, yes, it would be a deal breaker. If it's a deal breaker for them to be in a more open format,
Yeah.
then it's a deal breaker for me to be in a monogamous, like 100% monogamy. I'm not interested.
Same. Okay. We all agree on that one. Is it a deal breaker for you if someone sends nudes unprompted before the first date?
No. Why is that a deal breaker?
Yeah, that's not a deal breaker. Because some people, like, if you sending me this, you must be sending it to everybody. Like, they peg you as like
I don't
a
care.
slut from the 90s.
Is it a good nude?
And
Every people should see it.
But some people do have like judgment on people in that way. It's like I'm not endorsing that, but
Those
do.
people can choke.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. It's only a deal breaker for me if the news are bad.
Oh. If I don't like what I see,
I'm sorry, this is not going to work. Go away from me with that, Apollo. Is it a deal breaker for you if someone says they only have sex with condoms forever?
Yes.
that is just you can't. No, that's not sustainable.
It's not?
No.
You can't even imagine a world.
In 2024, the year of our Lord. I don't. Get somebody else to do it.
Yeah. Damon?
Right, the deal is broken.
The deal is broken.
Same. Okay. Last one. Is it a deal breaker for you if someone requires that you two have sex 4 to 5 times a week?
You ain't gonna require shit of my body, so yes.
Yeah, that's a deal breaker because I can't physically commit to that.
I'm a human being. You know what? Cut that from the episode. I don't want to sound crazy. No, same. It's a deal breaker for me too because I'm tired. I'm tired thinking about 4 to 5 times every single week for the rest of my life.
That sound like Larsa Pippen.
Is that what she demands?
Well,
whatever time they were having sex twice a day.
She was getting It was
for how long? The honeymoon phase?
Girl, I don't know.
Forever.
Yeah, like that's her. That was the standard status quo. Yeah.
I'm definitely tired in advance. All right, so let's move beyond the dating stage because this episode is really about relationships. So once you actually decide that you want to firm up some commitment with these people, let's start at the relationship. So do you think it's your responsibility to keep your partner sexually fulfilled?
Well,
yeah, Tony, why don't you let us know?
It's a little bit of a tug and war, push and pull. But let's start with some data.
Okay, we love a data point.
So there was a survey done about gay men and sexual compatibility, and it said, how important is sexual compatibility in a gay relationship? 34% of the folks said it's a deal breaker if you're not compatible. It's important, but not a deal breaker, 58%. It's not that important, 8%. Couple quotes. Someone said, if I found an emotionally compatible partner but not sexually compatible, then I would consider an open relationship. And someone else said, my husband and I aren't very sexually compatible, but we're still together 20 years later. So I feel like it's a shared responsibility because do I want to step up to the plate and satisfy my partner? Yes. But do I think that I can, am I capable, or do I even want to be 100% responsible for your your fulfillment? I don't think that I want to sign up for that because I don't know if I can meet that moment. And I don't know that I think someone else can completely meet the moment from me either. And then I also think about, and we've talked about this in past episodes and past seasons, the idea of compersion, which is the satisfaction and pleasure one experiences from knowing that their partner experienced sexual or romantic pleasure with someone other than them. And I can be okay with that. Getting satisfaction out of you being satisfied by someone else. But knowing that, you come home to me, this is still, we have a union, we have an understanding, we respect each other, you're not sneaking around. Like it's something I know about. And vice versa. I would want, well, I'm not saying you got to be satisfied by me having sex with other people, but there's got to be some level of you have an understanding and we have an open communication around the our engagements when it comes to satisfaction. So it's not my responsibility 100% of it. Like,
No, it's not. And I say no, it's not. Like, I exist in life in like a hierarchical, non-monogamous relationship where I have a primary partner and I have the flexibility to live life however I choose to, and so does my partner. And when I think about the word responsibility, I think my responsibility is around being honest with my partner about things that I desire, things that I like. And I think that they should be honest with me around where they are and in that moment, what they can or cannot provide, and to just be open about, like, my responsibility is around those feelings. Like, I think it's like this interesting mixture of things. Sometimes you share that honesty and you meet at the same place. Sometimes you don't. And I don't think that makes my partner or myself bad or negative about or towards each other. But people go through things in life. Maybe I'm not feeling sexy today. Maybe he's not feeling great in his body today. Maybe he's in a place, or I'm in a place where I just want to be alone.
yeah.
And I think that those feelings are just as valid as the feelings we have to desire that companionship and for that connectivity. And then in instances where we have desires and maybe we're not aligned in the same place, like, I'm not just looking for him to fulfill me. So
Yeah. It's interesting because that survey, I think, was kind of, it painted a picture to me that I feel is pretty accurate, where a lot of folks are like, most of the people, 58%, were saying it's important but not a deal breaker.
Yeah.
And you had 8% saying not that important, and you had 34% saying that it is a deal breaker. And I feel that for people who say that it is a deal breaker, I don't know how many of those folks are being honest about you having to satisfy someone 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's realistic. Like, do you think that's like? Do y'all think that you can actually?
I do think that it is your responsibility to make sure that your partner is sexually fulfilled. Not in the sense of, I need to be the person that does all of the acting to make sure that you're sexually fulfilled. What I mean is, it's my responsibility to make sure that if my partner has a desire, that I'm open to listening to it and I understand what my limitations are, and that I'm actively looking to figure out a solution so that my partner can be sexually fulfilled. So, like, for example, I had jaw surgery when I was a senior in high school, right before I went to Howard. And, like, even if I didn't have jaw surgery, I don't think that I would be really, really, like, I'm not like super into giving head, right? But if I was with somebody who was like, that is their thing, that is like their ultimate, like, I don't think that it's fair for me to, like, say, well, because I'm not the one that's able to give it to you or not interested in giving it to you, I prohibit you from doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that that's setting yourself up for disaster because they're going to probably have the, the feeling of wanting to go get that sensation or go get that desire. And so when I say it's my responsibility, I'm saying, like, understanding, I think, Damon, you tapped on it a little bit, but, like, understanding what you are and aren't able to actively contribute to the sexual dynamic using your body. You know what I mean? And understanding what those limitations are and being open to figuring out, how can my partner be happy in this space? And so to that, I think, is your responsibility. But I'm not doing every single thing that a partner is interested in doing just because they told me that they was interested in doing it.
Yeah, and it's tough when you have these desires or thoughts, or, like, a lot of times you come into a relationship and you kind of know some of the answers to certain things when it comes to the sex of it all. And people aren't having honest conversations, in my opinion, because they're not putting that all on the table. They're not discussing those things out loud.
Yeah.
The ones that do, I feel, have a higher level of success. And it's because they get to know each other more in a deeper way that allows them to exist and have a more fruitful relationship overall.
Yeah, I mean, you, Damon and Tony, you both mentioned honesty being something that is important. But also, on the same coin, I feel like not being 100% honest is so pervasive when it comes to having conversations about sexual interests and things like that. Why do you think people, and let's just keep it within the gay community, why do you think gay men aren't necessarily 100% open about what they like sexually when they're entering into a relationship?
I think about this from two different lenses because I think that relationship models also play a big part of this. So I'd say if it's someone searching for monogamy, I think that you're in a scenario where you are trying to convince yourself that this sexual universe can exist in a way that works with only these two people. And I think that sometimes to try and get that to work, you like suppress the things that you showed up with. Like if the partner who really likes head shows up with you and you all decide, we're going to be monogamous, then it's just like, okay, well, I probably shouldn't bring up to them how much I like head, because then it starts to make you feel inadequate. And like, then it's like creating this fear of like, oh, well, are they going to go get it somewhere else?
Yeah.
So I think that's a reason why people often don't share. And then if you take, like, I don't want to just like shit all over monogamous people, because like in the same way that if you're in a poly relationship or you're in an open relationship, people I think oftentimes think about their partner's ego. Like if you are with a partner and like, I don't know, sometimes you want a huge dick. Every now and then you're just like, "Child, give me the biggest one in New York."
We call that vacation dick.
Right.
That's the term.
Exactly. But then like you're with a partner and like even if your agreement is not monogamy, then it's like, oh, am I inadequate? Like especially as like specifically we talk about gay men, like things like dick size and all this stuff like gets in people's heads like, oh, so I'm not big enough, I'm not fulfilling them. Are they always just desiring this thing? So then you get in a place where people then just lie, just be like, oh no, that was just or that's not, I didn't really like that, or like deny that it's something that they do desire. So I think that ego is a big part of it, and trying to protect like the male fragile ego around certain things. Niggas be lying.
I mean, the risk that you take by not being forthcoming with information as it relates to what you want sexually, like holding back on certain things because you think your partner might view you in a different way, or you might not be able to like whatever the case may be. I think you take a risk of existing in a prison because you start to hold things in, and it could turn into resentment. It leads to cheating because if you're not going to be honest about what you want in your relationship to the person you're in the relationship with, then you start to you have a higher propensity to find that outside of the relationship and secretively.
Because you're not going to be honest to that person, but you can be honest to yourself. Like, there's only so long you can lie to your damn self.
Right.
Yeah.
Until you find, where's my truth? Isn't that big ass dick over there?
Yeah, and I think most people withhold information or not 100% honest because they want to. There's a fear of judgment too. If you have certain kinks that you don't want to be judged for, you might not express those sexual desires to your partner because of the fear of judgment. So if it goes back to that survey, kind of like if you take a survey of a bunch of folks, and I think a lot of times you're going to get people that just maybe won't answer 100% honestly. Like,
yeah. I mean, I think there's so many reasons why people aren't honest with what they want sexually. One thing that's coming to mind that that wasn't mentioned yet was I think that sometimes gay men aspire to be in relationships that mimic gender roles within straight couples. And I think, sometimes we'll see a person that presents more masculine take on the more dominant or top role, or someone who presents more feminine take on the more submissive role. And then I think that sometimes like it's just like there's no room to wiggle once you're actually in that dynamic, and maybe the more masculine one feels like, they would be, I don't know, not really delivering on the expectations in the relationship if they admitted that maybe they were interested in bottoming sometimes. Maybe the more feminine one is getting rejected when they try to make a play to be the more dominant one in the bedroom. And so I think that sometimes like gender roles kind of creep into relationships with gay men, and then we end up just playing these characters of who we think that we're supposed to be in these relationships. And then, again, it all leads to like lying. And then, you figuring out like how to keep it real with yourself in the dark behind closed doors.
Yeah. Well, have any of us felt stuck in that scenario? Like where you feel like we've been in a relationship, or even if it wasn't a relationship, someone that you're having sex with regularly, and you do have a desire to like switch it up, but felt like, okay, now we're here. We're here now, so.
Yeah, I mean, there was somebody who I was dating that I really, really liked, and we didn't make it to like the boyfriend stage. But our sexual routine was constantly me bottoming and him topping. And it was one of those things where I was just kind of like constantly asking for things to switch up. But there was some sort of like mental barrier for the other person.
Yeah.
When really I had classified information that they were actually okay with bottoming, just not for me. And so it was one of those things where it was just kind of like, okay, like I could have maybe been open to the situation and that dynamic being the thing, but there was just absolutely no communication around the disconnect. And so I felt like I was kind of stuck and I couldn't move forward.
But like being a person who said that they're open to would prefer some version of non-monogamy, does that bother you? Like, do you feel that you have to check off the versatile box with your partner before you can then explore it with someone else? Or do you feel like you could be in a top-bottom relationship with your partner and then you top in other places?
I think that my order of ranking would be that I would like to be able to be in a versatile situation with my partner, with the ability to float outside of the dynamic here and there.
Yeah.
But I would be open to the other thing. But I think that regardless, I would just expect some level of communication as to like, what is the holdup? You know what I mean? Because for me, I just felt like there was a lack of emotional closeness when it came to that. Because I'm just like, well, this is a point where I just feel like we just aren't able to be vulnerable with one another.
Yeah.
Like it's okay if it's not me that's checking the box for you, but I don't want to be left in the dark wondering. So I think, it's definitely possible. I think that it's not the first thing that I'm like pursuing, but I can make it work.
It's interesting because I've been in a relationship where I was mostly the top and then it switched and I was mostly bottoming. And then I've been in a relationship where I'm mostly top. Or I don't know if I've been in a relationship where I've been mostly just the bottom, but I'm open to any of those scenarios because it's not just about the sex. The sex can be figured out in other ways. That's where it is for me, where I've come to the point of like, it doesn't have to be 100% satisfied with the one person, but we have to be mature enough to have that conversation. And if it is a deal breaker, going back to your game, then let's not waste each other's time, because if we're going to if that's going to be something that down the road is not going to be a thing you can get past, whether it's mentally or you physically or like whatever the case may be, if it's going to bother you, then we shouldn't do it. And not to say it's sometimes easier said than done, because you might really like somebody, but you might not be sexually compatible, but you might want different things when it comes to your relationship and what you are comfortable with your partner doing outside of the relationship. And so that's when it gets tricky. But in line with this conversation, it's about being honest with yourself, about being honest with your partner, and about making the most responsible, mature decision that makes sense for where you all stand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think that in my lifetime of dating stages, pre-boyfriend stages, actual boyfriend stages, like I think that where I kind of try to
What is the pre-boyfriend stage?
it's that
But yeah, because you said
limbo.
dating stage, pre-boyfriend stage.
It's that
When it's getting close?
It's getting close.
It's like
But
edging.
it's not there yet. We didn't circle the box and said yes or no yet.
He's edging. And ran through relationships.
I'm just like, because I was single then I was married. So I'm like, I don't know what all these steps are you have.
Oh, child. Well, yeah, and that was always so confusing to me. I'm like, where are the other stages? But no, I mean, I just think that in my experience of like having different romances, what's really, really rare, I think, is like the value alignment, right? And so for me, I've deprioritized sex because I'm just like, it's already a battle just getting somebody who you actually feel like emotionally safe with, that you share like similar goals with, similar interests. You feel like you can actually get into an argument with them and it's not the end of the relationship and they know how to have an argument respectfully. So yeah, I think experiences let me know like, child, you need to make sure that there is some actual chemistry that you have with that partner before you start over-indexing on the compatibility. But a lot of the conversation that we're talking about is around, what happens when you're not sexually fulfilled and do you look for outside things. A lot of people, instead of, having sex with someone else, when they're sexually unfulfilled, they may look to porn or, some sort of digital alternative. Do you think there are any downsides to watching porn in a relationship to sort of distract yourself from the unfulfillment that you're having?
If you're doing it to distract yourself.
Right. It's for me, you could take the word porn out and substitute anything in for it. And I think that sometimes we like vilify porn. Or like I think about when we were at the Deviant event, he was talking about party drugs. He was like, drugs aren't necessarily the bad thing. It's how you use the thing. And I think that obviously in use and there's more severity towards using certain things versus others. But in the same way, porn isn't bad, but how are you using it? Like, are you using it to purely escape? Maybe not great. Are you using it in a way that you're developing unrealistic expectations about what sex and connectivity actually is? Because like sex in real life is not well lit, produced with like perfect camera shots of your asshole. So like where like everybody has a 10-inch dick and like super fucking muscular. Like that's just not what life looks like. Those are hired professionals like doing something at a high caliber, not your amateur ass at home. And now you looking at me to my why you not fucking like Raheem.
Well, some of the amateurs is going mainstream now. So
listen, I like to think I fuck like a porn star. And I want to be careful because we have a vanilla switch on the panel.
Who's a vanilla switch?
Me.
I like. Exactly. I don't want sex to be boring. I want to have.
I'm not saying it's boring. I'm not saying at home sex is like just boring and just like the same old missionary every fucking week. But what I'm saying, right?
Rocking back and forth.
Right. But what I'm saying is like, don't watch a video of like 10 Brazilians on a cliff on a private beach with 10-inch dicks and it's just be like, why is life not like that? Nigga, because I'm not for hire.
Right, that's true.
Like that's a different experience. Like you cast for that. And the same way you cast for a movie.
Yeah, like I think the downside, as I started off saying, is like when you rely on porn to be a distraction, to get off. That's when it can become problematic. And because I think porn with your partner and watching it together can be fun, can be additive. I'm a visual person. I like to see, like, aside from my partner, is like they should do it for you without the porn, but the porn should be something that can be additive. Where it's just like it's another stimulus.
Yeah.
And so I think when it gets murky is when you need it to actually like get off, and then the question becomes, does your partner not do it for you? Do you have to have that point? Like, if you can't just have sex without,
But like that could just be their kink. Like
no, you can have the kink, but if it's a requirement to have the porn.
But like I think that maybe porn, like when we're talking about with the partner, not like separate. Like separately,
Yeah,
I think
I'm talking about with the partner.
Yeah, so like with the partner, that could just be how they like to have sex.
Oh yeah, if y'all are both into it and y'all want to watch it every time you fuck, great. But if one person,
but that's for me in my
if
house.
if one person's starting to feel like you cheating on them with Raheem, you know, because in your like you need to see Raheem on screen in order to like do what we need to do in this bedroom. That's when it becomes, I think, a little bit of that's the downside. That could be the downside.
I think a lot of people villainize porn. We hear the term porn addiction all the time. People are trying to figure out like how much porn is too much porn. Like, are you watching porn every day? And like, they're trying to figure out like this rubric to decide whether or not you're addicted to porn.
Is there a?
I have the rubric.
The thing is, people try to pull out the rubric, but I feel like it's all bullshit. I think a lot of the stigma around porn, again, comes from straight relationships. Like, I think that a lot of, and I was doing some research preparing for this conversation, but in a lot of straight relationships, there's this expectation that once you're with a partner, that there should be no need for external stimulus.
Stupidest
Your
fucking shit
partner
I've
should
ever heard of in my
fulfill
life.
you completely, and so the use of porn feels like betrayal to the relationship. And then going a step further, if it's like OnlyFans, now it's like you have a personal relationship with the creator. Is that like going a step further? But what I want to read is a excerpt from an article in Huffington Post. It was actually written by Dr. Joe Court, who's a queer sex and relationship therapist. It's called "Porn is Not a Public Health Crisis for Gay Men. Then Why Is It for Straight People?" The quote says, "In the straight community, all too often, there is the assumption, especially by women, that once the couple is together, both partners should be everything to one another, superseding the need for porn." And I just don't think that it's realistic. We talked about this, that your partner is going to be able to tickle every fucking fancy that you have. And so I think
I have a question about that. Is it talking about superseding the need for porn together or superseding the need for porn?
Period. Period. Like, you should not be going to Pornhub.com after you've committed to a relationship.
Because women start to feel like, why are you watching porn?
Exactly.
That all needs to be saved for me.
Yeah. And I think a lot of it is also, Damon, you talked about it, I think a lot of it, not just with straight women, but like in general, a lot of it is rooted in ego as well. Like, I think that sometimes when you find out, who's your favorite creators,
they don't look like me.
And they're just like, wait, this person looks completely different than me.
Right.
And, it gives like some people.
That's your fantasy. That's what you really want.
Right, so that's what you want. So that's what you like.
Sometimes.
So, I mean, I think that the main downside of like, going to porn maybe to like, address the fact that maybe you aren't happy sexually in a relationship is that it actually robs you of the ability to have a conversation with your partner to talk about what you actually want. Like, I don't think that there's anything wrong with porn. I think that we diagnose people with porn addiction way too frequently in our community.
We diagnose people with everything. It's just like, y'all aren't doctors, psychiatrists, therapists.
They're like, you watching porn again? You addicted to porn? It's just like, first of all,
they
could just be practicing safe sex. Okay. Let them have their little experience with themselves.
Oh,
people
I was
watch
just like,
porn
what?
For a lot of
and I was like, oh, I get it. I got it.
But like,
I got
people
it.
have a lot of different reasons for it. You know what I mean? Some people also like look to porn because maybe they don't want to have the whole emotional, spiritual connection with somebody else. Maybe they just want to have, a 10-minute session and then go get their coffee and move on with their day.
Because how often is it when you've had an itch that needed to be scratched, and you really want that itch scratched, but then you watch a little porn and you ejaculate, and then you're like, I'm so glad.
Got a clear mind now.
Yeah, got a clear mind.
I can think straight.
You know, I can think straight. I'm not about to just like make some rash decision.
Yeah.
So that is a form of a practice of safe sex.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Keeping you not in the streets.
Right. So the last question I want to end on is I want to give our listeners something a bit more actionable. So I feel like a lot of this conversation, what we're doing essentially is encouraging people to like actually talk about the shit that they want out of a relationship and hoping that their partner has the emotional space to have that conversation with them. Looking back at an experience that you've had, how do you deal with not being on the same page sexually with your partner? Like, what steps did you take to be able to resolve those things successfully?
I mean, I just think that for me, I recognize that there is no same page. And I'm not trying to necessarily resolve anything. I think that I'm trying to recognize my partner as a fully realized human who has a relationship with sexuality, with their body, with every other stimulus in the world going on. And I'm not looking to that person to just like, I don't know, like be a dildo. Like sometimes I feel like we think about people as if they're like just like sex toys versus like fully realized beings.
That's my dick.
Right.
That's my ass.
That's my ass.
That's my ass.
That's my
And
pussy.
I just said,
I'm glad you said it.
but no, and I generally just try and operate in a space of like some level of sexual synergy. Like me and my partner do have desire towards each other. He's fucking hot. And at the same time, like I'm non-monogamous. So like even with that desire, I'm not just looking for all of my fulfillment there. Like I like the idea that there is, we mutually desire one another. Like if we go back to the original question, the responsibility to fulfill, I think I'm looking for connective desire for one another. Like I wouldn't want to be with a partner where I'm just like, you don't like me at all. Like even if we're not acting on it, like there's this desire or whatever, but like the actioning I think is a lot more complex and deals with all the other things going on in life. It always goes back to non-monogamy for me. Like I think that once that I truly accepted that's the type of space I wanted to exist in and acted on it and wasn't ashamed of it. I talk about it here. I talk about it in life. I talk about it to anybody I meet. Like that to me has just been a healthier way to deal with sexuality and to take the pressure away from like looking for this magical compatibility test that like I don't think is real.
Yeah, I mean when you started by saying there is no same page, what threw me off because I was like, what do you mean there's no same page? Because I think that there is a same page, just the understanding of
being on different pages. Yeah,
that's what I'm getting at. You picked up what I'm putting down. But for this one, I created a list of 5 things, sort of a rubric of things that maybe you all have done this, or for the listeners, maybe you might want to try. But I think that when it comes to not being on the same page, that one, it must be discussed. So don't resort to cheating because you're not mature enough to have a conversation about it. 2, consider how much you and your partner are actually talking about sex. That's what I mentioned earlier. A lot of people want to have all this great sex, but they don't want to do all the great talking.
Yep.
And that's important. Otherwise, what are we doing here? We're guessing around.
And I think to add to that, the talking about sex is like not a one-time conversation.
It's
like you revisit it. Like a year from now, I may feel differently. Like you can revise those feelings. So like I think it's not constant, but like continuously revisiting the conversation.
Right. It's not an open and shut case.
Right.
3, come to terms with how to improve the incompatibility together. And that's through the conversations, right? And figuring out how can we navigate this?
Yeah.
What's going to work for us if we want to resolve this thing? And then if you're both committed to working it out, try a few things. See what works, see what doesn't work. Don't just like be like, all right, well, I tried it.
Right.
It's not working.
Yeah.
So, I'm giving you a pink slip and we're gonna. And then lastly, if you have to sunset the relationship after a while, that's okay.
Yeah.
Accept that it just might not be something that is salvageable in that way, and be mature enough to understand that the best decision might be just walking away. Maybe you can be friends, maybe you can't, but coming to some sort of acceptance around that is going to be important to be able to like navigate the situation.
Yeah, I think it was maybe step 3 or something where it was like
We got lost in the
have the
rubric.
conversation.
Yeah.
I want to encourage people to just like go a bit deeper when they're having these conversations. I think that sometimes where people, and I've seen it play out on like TV, but also like on social media, where people just are like very zero tolerance about conversations around like a different or untraditional sort of sexual dynamic with their partner. And I think that there's sometimes a gut reaction to shame the other person for even bringing it up and wanting to talk about something that feels a bit out of the standard. And what you see is that like if somebody says they want to experiment with, I'm using hypotheticals. If somebody's saying that they want to experiment with like group sex, like somebody might shame it immediately and just be like, oh, that's nasty. Like I would never do that. That's too many people. That's unsanitary. And it's just like, slow down. Like that's a flippant response. You know what I mean? Like, what is your real impulse about that? Like, be real with yourself. Are you like me and you're somebody who get anxiety around more than one person in the bedroom? You know what I mean? Like, is that what your body is reacting to? I think that the conversations is also an opportunity for you to learn something about yourself. And what are your triggers and why do you feel that certain things are unacceptable or off limits, because I find that a lot of the quick reactions to shame the other partner for opening up and trying to create a line of communication comes from something that's a bit more personal from you. Like it could be a fear, like it could be trauma against like abandonment. It could be that you struggle with low self-esteem, but maybe portray yourself as this uber confident person. And so I think that that's part of it too. It's not just like, okay, we had the conversation. It's like it's also being like you need to have some alone time and think about what's actually guiding how you navigate through that conversation. So I would definitely say that, because I definitely said no to a lot of things that were actually rooted in like personal insecurities and not necessarily like values.
Yeah, well, that's good, because it's like it's unlearning. It's the unlearning that we have to go through in order to be like, why was I saying no to those things before? Right. What was that rooted in? And coming to that realization is a beautiful thing, I think, because it allows you to just have more honest conversations going forward, and more upfront too, right? Like a lot of times people wait around to like go deeper, and it's like maybe you should. I don't know if there's a length of time. However, I think you want to do it sooner than later.
Honestly, if there's a good card game for having sex conversations, that was something that actually was really, really helpful.
That's a good one.
Like
somebody got me one. Somebody. One of y'all got me one.
I got you. The We're Not Strangers.
No, but somebody got me sex talk. It's like,
probably that too.
I think you got it for me.
I got you. Came about.
I think I got you 2 card games.
Oh, maybe. I'm like, one of y'all gave it to me for Christmas one of these years.
Yeah, I did.
But like those like card games are like so like it just sort of like takes away a layer of intensity. I think sometimes when you enter into an uncomfortable conversation, it's just like, what made you think about asking that? And
like, girl, I asked everybody that.
I just pulled it out. We're both, you see me pulling the card out of the deck. This was the card that came up. Let's both try to answer it honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I said just as a joke, I said that I was going to come back to you at the end of the episode, Damon, and ask you, is it a deal breaker for you if someone has a 3-month no sex rule? Because you seem unbelievable. In the beginning, I said I would come back.
Astonished.
To you. So after this conversation, where are you at now?
It's not. Okay, this is where I am. It's not about the rule. I believe you should have whatever relationship you want with your body, but like I think someone that would say that to me, like it just doesn't seem like we're very aligned in how we think about and view sex, and that to me seems like the seeds of when we talk about that long-term lack of mutual desire. Like that to me doesn't.
You're having a hard time.
I'm just having a hard time.
Yeah, to you, it signals something that may become a misalignment.
It's just a different
of
value.
ideologies
Yeah.
in
Like
the future.
you're right. Like ideologically, it seems just a bit separate.
Okay. Well, listen, everybody find who you're aligned with.
Yeah.
Let's start there. And then the conversations will be a lot easier to have. But that is all the time that we have this week. If you enjoyed this episode, let's keep the conversation going. Let us know your thoughts and questions at surfacelevelpodcast.com. And remember, stay curious.